Welcome to the Life Paradox, where reality is stranger than fiction. Emma Miller clutched her resume with trembling fingers as she entered Riverside Bistro for the 6th job interview that week. Each previous attempt had ended the same way: polite smiles followed by rejection emails citing better qualified candidates. No one would say what everyone was thinking. Her deafness made employers uncomfortable. The restaurant's interior gleamed with polished wood and ambient lighting. Emma took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. She'd practiced this scenario countless times: explain her ability to read lips, demonstrate her communication system, assure them that customers rarely noticed. Yet her confidence waned with each rejection. Greg Daniels, Riverside's manager, looked up from the host station with undisguised annoyance when Emma approached. He'd been short-staffed for weeks, and the pile of applications on his desk had yielded nothing but college kids who'd quit before training finished. "Can I help you?" he asked, not bothering to hide his impatience. Emma placed her resume on the counter and spoke carefully. "I'm here about the hostess position." Her voice carried the distinct cadence of someone who couldn't hear their own words. Greg's eyebrows shot up, and something shifted in his expression. Not compassion, but a spark of amusement. "You're deaf?" he asked, exaggerating his mouth movements mockingly. Emma nodded, maintaining eye contact. "Yes, but I read lips and speak clearly. I have restaurant experience and—" Greg cut her off with a wave, leaning back to study her. His gaze wasn't assessing her qualifications, but seeming to calculate something else entirely. A smirk played at the corner of his mouth as an idea formed. "You know what? You're hired," Greg announced abruptly. Emma blinked in surprise. "Really? Don't you want to conduct an interview or—" "Not necessary," Greg interrupted. "We need someone immediately. Can you start tomorrow?" Every paradox begins with a question. If you love unraveling life's biggest mysteries, hit subscribe and join the Life Paradox, where every story bends reality. What Emma couldn't hear was Greg turning to his assistant manager, Mark, whispering, "This'll be hilarious. Can you imagine her trying to handle the phone or hear kitchen call-outs? The staff will get a kick out of it." Mark frowned slightly but said nothing as Greg turned back to Emma with an exaggerated smile. "Be here at 10 tomorrow morning," Greg said loudly, as if volume would help her understand. Emma nodded eagerly, relief washing over her face. 6 weeks of rejections had finally ended. She shook Greg's hand firmly, unaware of his true intentions. Home that evening, Emma called her sister Kate using video relay services. "I got a job," she signed excitedly. "A nice restaurant downtown?" Kate's face lit up. "That's wonderful. How did the interview go?" Emma hesitated. "It was surprisingly easy. The manager hired me on the spot." "That's fantastic. You've been trying so hard?" "Yes," Emma agreed, pushing away a flicker of unease. Something about Greg's expression had seemed off, but after weeks of rejection, she was desperate for this opportunity. "I start tomorrow." That night, Emma meticulously prepared for her first day, organizing her notepad for taking orders, downloading a speech-to-text app for her phone, rehearsing common restaurant phrases in the mirror to ensure clear pronunciation. Meanwhile, across town, Greg sat in his apartment, texting several staff members. "Wait until you see our new hostess tomorrow. This should make the dinner rush more entertaining for once." Emma fell asleep with hope blooming in her chest. Greg fell asleep, imagining the workplace entertainment value of his newest hire. Neither realized that their lives were about to change course in ways no security camera could fully capture. Emma arrived at Riverside Bistro 30 minutes early, dressed in a crisp black blouse and slacks. Her hair was neatly pinned back, revealing hearing aids she wore not for sound but to detect vibrations. She waited by the entrance, reviewing restaurant protocols she'd studied online. Greg arrived with a coffee in hand, nearly spilling it when he spotted Emma. For a moment, he'd forgotten about his impulsive hire from yesterday. The memory of his practical joke flooded back, bringing a tight smile to his face. "Good morning," Emma said carefully, watching his lips for a response. "Morning," Greg replied, deliberately turning away while still speaking. "Let's get you started with paperwork." Inside, he introduced Emma to the morning staff with theatrical gestures. "Everyone, this is Emma, our new hostess. She's deaf, so speak up." He winked at Todd, the bartender, who chuckled uncomfortably. Lisa, a server with kind eyes, approached Emma during orientation. "Need any help learning the table numbers?" she asked, facing Emma directly. "Thank you," Emma replied, appreciating how Lisa naturally positioned herself for easy lip reading. "I've memorized the floor plan already, but I'd love to understand your ticketing system." Lisa walked Emma through the restaurant's ordering software, impressed by how quickly Emma grasped the concepts. When Emma pulled out a small notebook to jot down information, Lisa noticed elegant diagrams Emma had already prepared, visual systems for managing seating and tracking table status. "You've done this before," Lisa commented. Emma nodded. "Different restaurant, similar challenges." By noon, the lunch rush began. Greg positioned himself near the host stand, anticipating the entertainment of watching Emma struggle. A family of 4 entered, the father speaking while looking down at his phone. "Table. For 4, preferably by the window," he muttered. Greg smirked, waiting for confusion to cross Emma's face. Instead, she smiled warmly, grabbed 4 menus, and gestured toward the available window seating with graceful confidence. Throughout lunch service, Emma developed a seamless system. She kept careful track of seating rotations on her notepad, used hand signals with servers that they quickly adopted, and maintained a calm demeanor that put customers at ease. One regular customer, Ben Walker, observed Emma with increasing interest. A middle-aged man with thoughtful eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he noticed how she managed despite Greg's obvious attempts to complicate her work. As Ben finished his meal, he approached the host stand where Emma stood organizing menus. "That was excellent service," he said, making sure she could see his face. "Is there a comment card?" Emma handed him a small card with a grateful smile. Ben wrote something lengthy before folding it and handing it directly to Emma rather than leaving it on the table. When Emma read it later, tears welled in her eyes. "Your efficiency and grace under pressure are remarkable. Some might see limitations. I see exceptional ability. Thank you for enhancing my dining experience." As the afternoon lull settled over the restaurant, Greg gathered several staff members in the back office, security cameras recording their conversation without sound. "Is she managing okay?" asked Mark, the assistant manager. Greg rolled his eyes. "For now, but wait until dinner service. No way she'll handle the chaos without hearing the kitchen calls or phone reservations." "I don't know," Lisa interjected. "She's actually pretty amazing at—" "She's a gimmick," Greg interrupted. "Customers feel sorry for her now, but the novelty will wear off when service quality drops." Emma couldn't hear this conversation, but she felt the weight of stares when she entered the break room. Conversations halted. Smiles became forced. She recognized this pattern from previous jobs, the initial curiosity, followed by resentment when accommodations were needed. What Emma didn't know was that Greg had placed her at the host station directly under one of the restaurant's security cameras, hoping to capture footage of inevitable mistakes he could share for laughs at the next manager's meeting. By late afternoon, Emma had memorized the facial features of every staff member, adapted to the restaurant's flow, and prepared for the evening rush with meticulous planning. Her notepad contained detailed notes about regulars' preferences and table arrangements. Greg watched from across the room, his amusement slowly giving way to something adjacent to annoyance. The joke was taking an unexpected turn. Night was falling. Outside the restaurant windows, the real test was about to begin. The dinner rush hit Riverside Bistro like a tidal wave. By 6 o'clock, the waiting area overflowed with hungry customers. Reservation phones rang constantly, and servers rushed between packed tables. For most restaurants, this controlled chaos was normal. For Greg, it was the perfect storm to expose Emma's inadequacies. "Let's see how she handles this," he muttered to Todd as he deliberately seated 3 large parties simultaneously in Emma's section. Emma surveyed the sudden influx with calculated composure. Without hearing the rising volume of complaints or kitchen call-outs, she focused entirely on visual cues, the body language of waiting customers, the patterns of server movement, the flashing lights she discreetly attached to the reservation. Phone. When the phone flashed, Emma seamlessly transferred calls to Lisa, who had volunteered to handle phone duties. For walk-ins, Emma developed a numbered ticket system with estimated wait times clearly marked, eliminating the need for verbal announcements. By 7:30, something unexpected was happening. The restaurant floor had effectively split into 2 functioning systems. Half the staff followed Greg's conventional approach, while the other half adapted to Emma's visual communication methods: hand signals for table status, color-coded cards for special requests, and a centralized tracking board Emma had improvised from a dry erase seating chart. "Table 14 needs drink refills," Emma wrote precisely on the server communication pad, sliding it to Mark as he passed. Her system eliminated the need to shout over restaurant noise, a benefit even hearing staff began to appreciate. Danny, a newer server who had initially viewed Emma with skepticism, found herself gravitating toward Emma's system after 3 drink orders were misheard in the noisy environment. "This actually works better," Danny admitted to Lisa during a brief lull. "I haven't had a single mix-up since using her color cards." Across the dining room, Ben Walker had returned for dinner, this time with business associates. He requested Emma's section specifically, impressed by her afternoon performance. Throughout the meal, he observed the increasingly evident division among staff, those embracing Emma's methods versus those deliberately making her work more difficult. Greg noticed Ben's attention and approached his table with an obsequious smile. "Is everything satisfactory this evening, sir?" "Quite," Ben replied coolly. "Your new hostess has implemented an impressive system. Have you considered adopting it throughout the restaurant?" Greg's smile tightened. "We're still evaluating her. Unique approach." "Interesting," Ben replied. "Because from where I sit, half your floor is running notably more efficiently than the other." After Ben's party departed, Greg cornered Emma by the service station. He waited until she was looking directly at him before speaking. "You've changed protocols without authorization," he said, his words clipped. "This isn't how we operate." Emma maintained steady eye contact. "The systems work together. The visual cues help everyone during peak volume times." "This isn't about efficiency," Greg snapped, momentarily forgetting his audience couldn't hear his tone. "It's about following established restaurant procedures." Emma nodded calmly. "I understand. Should I remove the visual aids?" The question placed Greg in an unexpected dilemma. The security cameras were capturing this interaction. Admitting the visual system worked would mean acknowledging Emma's competence. Demanding its removal would potentially disrupt service during their busiest period. "Keep it for tonight," he conceded reluctantly. "We'll discuss permanent changes later." By closing time, restaurant operations had transformed in subtle but significant ways. Several servers had adopted Emma's hand signals for communicating across the noisy floor. The kitchen staff appreciated the clear written modifications to orders rather than shouted changes that often got misheard. In the break room, Emma couldn't hear the conversations, but she noticed the staff had naturally segregated. Those who resented accommodating her methods clustered around Greg, while others who had embraced the visual system chatted among themselves. Mark approached Emma as she gathered her belongings. "Some of us are going for drinks," he said, making sure she could see his face. "Would you like to join?" Before Emma could respond, Greg intervened. "Actually, Emma, I need you here early tomorrow for additional training." Emma nodded politely, recognizing the transparent excuse. As she left through the back door, security cameras recorded Greg's triumphant smirk dissolving into a frown when several staff members decided to skip drinks altogether rather than participate in conversations they suspected would turn mean-spirited. At home, Emma messaged her sister, "Mixed day. Some colleagues are wonderful. Others—" She paused, then continued typing. "But I'm making it work. The systems I developed are actually helping everyone." What Emma didn't share was the knot of determination forming in her chest. She recognized Greg's intention to humiliate her through impossible expectations. She'd encountered this before, but never had she been so prepared to prove her worth. Meanwhile, Greg reviewed security footage, fast-forwarding through scenes of Emma competently managing the floor. This wasn't producing the entertaining content he'd anticipated. Instead of searching for Emma's mistakes, he found himself looking for ways to create them. Tomorrow would require more direct intervention. The Wednesday lunch shift began like any other, except for the tension humming through Riverside Bistro. 3 days into Emma's employment, the staff had firmly divided into camps, those who appreciated her innovative systems versus those loyal to Greg's increasingly hostile leadership. Emma arrived to find her carefully arranged host station in disarray. The visual aids she'd created were missing, her communication notepads relocated, and the seating chart deliberately erased. Security cameras silently recorded Greg's satisfied expression as Emma discovered the sabotage. Rather than react, Emma simply retrieved backup materials from her bag. She'd anticipated this possibility. It wasn't her first experience with workplace hostility. Within minutes, she had restored her system and was ready as the first customers arrived. The lunch rush brought a young family with 3 children, parents Laura and Michael Wilson with their children, Lily, age 10, Jake, age 8, and Tyler, just 5 years old. Emma seated them at a corner booth, noting on the server card that the youngest seemed fussy and might need prompt service. Greg intercepted the card before it reached Danny, their assigned server. "Stop creating extra work for my staff," he said, when Emma glanced his way. He deliberately turned his back while continuing to speak, preventing her from reading his lips, a tactic he'd employed with increasing frequency. 40 minutes into the lunch service, the security cameras captured a sequence of events that would change everything. In the corner booth, little Tyler began to squirm uncomfortably. His mother was in the restroom, his father distracted by a work call he'd stepped outside to take. The older children were absorbed in their tablets. No one immediately noticed when Tyler put a large grape in his mouth, when he began to struggle, or when his face flushed with panic. Most staff members couldn't hear the first small gasping sounds over the restaurant noise. But Emma, focused entirely on visual information, noticed the subtle change in the child's demeanor immediately. Her eyes, constantly scanning the restaurant for visual cues, caught Tyler's tiny hands clutching his throat, the universal sign for choking. Security footage showed Emma moving with extraordinary speed, crossing the restaurant floor in seconds. She reached Tyler before anyone else registered the emergency, lifted the small boy, and performed a perfect Heimlich maneuver. The grape dislodged on the third thrust, flying from Tyler's mouth as he gasped for air. Only then did the commotion spread through the restaurant, Laura returning from the restroom to find her son in a stranger's arms, Michael rushing back inside. Patrons rising from their seats in concern, Emma gently returned Tyler to his mother's embrace. She grabbed her notepad, quickly writing, "He was choking on a grape. He's okay now. Might want doctor to check him." The entire incident had unfolded in less than 20 seconds, every moment captured by the overhead security camera. Laura clutched Emma's hand, tears streaming down her face. "You saved him," she repeated, realizing belatedly that Emma wasn't responding to her voice. "Thank you, thank you." Michael embraced Emma with tearful gratitude, while Tyler, already recovering with childhood resilience, drank water and accepted comfort from his siblings. The restaurant had fallen silent, all eyes on the scene. Greg pushed. Through the crowd, his face a mask of professional concern that hadn't been there moments before. "Is everything all right here?" he asked loudly. Laura turned to him, still emotional. "Your hostess saved my son's life. He was choking, and she just knew exactly what to do." Greg nodded solemnly, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder for the first time, acutely aware of the audience of customers. "She's one of our most valued team members." Emma maintained her composure, though she noticed Greg's sudden change in demeanor. Behind them, a customer was recording the aftermath on his phone, capturing Greg's apparent supportiveness. As the Wilson family recovered and the restaurant returned to normal service, Emma resumed her duties with characteristic efficiency. But something had shifted in the atmosphere. Servers who had previously avoided eye contact now offered genuine smiles. Customers who overheard the story watched her with newfound respect. During the afternoon lull, Mark approached Emma at the host station. "What you did today was incredible. How did you notice when none of us heard anything?" Emma replied simply, "I watch everything. When you can't hear, you see more." Later that evening, Greg gathered the staff for a brief meeting. Emma stood slightly apart, still an outsider despite the day's events. "Good work today, team," Greg announced. "Especially during that situation with the child." He paused, visibly struggling with his next words. Our, special accommodations for Emma seemed to pay off today. Several staff members exchanged glances at this blatant revision of reality. Everyone knew Greg had actively undermined those accommodations that very morning. As the meeting dispersed, Ben Walker entered the restaurant for his now daily visit. He approached Emma directly. "I heard what happened today," he said, making sure she could see his face clearly. "Remarkable awareness." Emma smiled modestly. "Just doing my job." Ben's gaze shifted to Greg, who was watching their interaction with poorly disguised concern. "Some people hire for diversity as a public relations exercise," Ben commented. "Others recognize the unique value different perspectives bring." His words were clearly intended for Greg to overhear. What neither Emma nor Greg knew yet was that the incident had already begun spreading online. A diner had posted a clip from their phone with the caption, "Deaf hostess saves choking child while others don't even notice. Riverside Bistro hero." By closing time, the video had 5,000 views. By morning, it would reach 50,000. By the weekend, it would change everything. The security camera footage continued recording as Greg retreated to his office, pulled up the day's surveillance video, and stared at the indisputable evidence of Emma's extraordinary capability and his own transparent duplicity. By Thursday morning, the video of Emma's quick action had reached over 100,000 views across multiple platforms. News outlets had picked up the story, celebrating the heroic deaf hostess of Riverside Bistro. Emma awoke to dozens of message notifications and an unexpected call from a local TV station requesting an interview. At the restaurant, Greg arrived early, frantically scrolling through social media on his phone. The coverage was overwhelmingly positive for the restaurant, with comments praising their inclusive hiring practices and Emma's exceptional awareness. What should have been a marketing victory felt like quicksand beneath his feet. When Emma arrived for her shift, Greg greeted her with an exaggerated smile. "Our hero arrives," he announced loudly, gesturing for nearby staff to applaud. Emma nodded politely, reading the insincerity in his expression. The same security cameras that had captured her life-saving intervention now recorded Greg's performative enthusiasm, a stark contrast to his behavior just days earlier. "The news wants to interview you," Greg informed her, maintaining eye contact. "With practiced effort. I'll be joining, of course, as your manager." By noon, a small news crew had set up in a corner of the restaurant. The reporter, Alexis Chen, had brought an interpreter for Emma's comfort, though Emma preferred to read lips and speak for herself during the interview. "What made you notice the child was in distress when no one else did?" Alexis asked. Emma responded, thoughtfully, "When you're deaf, you develop a different kind of awareness. I'm constantly watching everything, expressions, movements, patterns. It becomes second nature." Greg leaned into the frame. "We at Riverside Bistro value diverse talents. Emma's unique perspective is why we hired her." Behind the camera, several staff members exchanged knowing glances. Lisa, who had become Emma's closest ally, visibly tensed at Greg's revisionist narrative. After the interview, Laura and Michael Wilson returned to the restaurant with young Tyler, bringing flowers and a handwritten card. The family had become minor celebrities themselves, appearing in the viral video and subsequent news coverage. "We wanted to thank you properly," Laura said, embracing Emma. Tyler, now recovered and shy in the spotlight, handed Emma a crayon drawing of her with the words "My hero" spelled out in childish letters. Cameras flashed as Emma knelt to accept the drawing. Greg positioned himself strategically in the background of every photo, his hand hovering near Emma's shoulder without quite touching it, close enough to suggest supportive leadership for any photographers. As media interest intensified throughout the day, corporate representatives from Riverside's parent company arrived unannounced. Janine Foster, the regional director, requested an immediate meeting with Greg in his office. "This is exceptional publicity," Janine said once they were alone. "The company wants to feature Emma in our upcoming diversity campaign." Greg's smile remained fixed. "Wonderful idea. I've been mentoring her closely." Janine studied him. "Really? Because we've received some concerning messages about her early days here." Greg's expression faltered. "What messages?" "Anonymous staff. Reports suggesting Emma was hired as some sort of joke?" Janine's voice cooled several degrees. "Surely that can't be true, given your enthusiastic support of her now." "Absolutely false," Greg insisted, adjusting his tie nervously. "Disgruntled employees spreading rumors." Janine nodded slowly. "Good to hear, because the company is fully committed to this narrative now. Emma's story is exactly the kind of authentic representation we want associated with our brand." After Janine departed, Greg closed his office door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. What had begun as a cruel workplace joke had transformed into a corporate public relations opportunity he couldn't control. Worse, someone on staff was apparently sharing the truth about his original intentions. Meanwhile, Emma continued her shift, unaware of the corporate politics swirling around her. She noticed increased whispers and stares, but attributed them to the recent publicity rather than anything more insidious. During the dinner rush, Ben Walker arrived again, this time with several well-dressed associates. When Emma greeted them, Ben introduced himself properly for the first time. "Ben Walker, CEO of Walker Investments," he said, handing her a business card. "I've been watching your work with great interest." Emma thanked him politely, not yet realizing the significance of his attention. As Ben's party was seated, Greg emerged from his office with renewed determination. He approached Emma at the host stand, security cameras recording his performance. "How's our star employee?" he asked loudly, placing an arm around her shoulders for the first time, a gesture captured by at least 3 customers' phones. Emma stepped slightly away from the unwelcome contact. "Fine, thank you." "I've been thinking," Greg continued, oblivious to her discomfort. "Perhaps we should make you our floor manager once this publicity dies down. You've certainly earned it." What Greg didn't say, what he had decided in the privacy of his office, was that he would ride this publicity wave while necessary, then find a plausible reason to terminate Emma's employment once public attention shifted elsewhere. He needed only to maintain appearances until then. As evening progressed, Emma noticed something troubling. snippets of conversation among certain staff members, accompanied by exaggerated hand gestures and silent laughter when they thought she wasn't looking. Even without hearing, she recognized mockery when she saw it. During her break, Lisa approached with obvious discomfort. "Emma, there's something you should know," Lisa said hesitantly. "Some of the staff, they've been making fun of sign language behind your back, led by Greg." Emma nodded slowly, unsurprised but hurt nonetheless. "Thank you for telling me." "There's more," Lisa continued. "Someone leaked Greg's original messages about hiring you as entertainment. They're starting to circulate among staff." Emma processed this information with the same quiet dignity she applied to everything. The truth usually emerges eventually. What neither of them knew was that the restaurant's security footage, including Greg's performative support contrasted with earlier mockery, had been requested by corporate as part of their due diligence before launching the diversity campaign. The cameras continued recording as Emma returned to work, as Greg performed allyship for watching eyes, and as Ben Walker observed the entire dynamic with calculating interest. A storm was brewing beneath Riverside Bistro's newfound fame, one that security cameras would soon expose to the world. Friday evening brought the week's heaviest dinner service. Riverside Bistro's reservations had doubled following the viral video, with many guests requesting the section with the deaf hostess. Emma had become an inadvertent attraction, bringing both welcome business and uncomfortable scrutiny. Greg spent the day orchestrating what he considered a masterful performance, publicly praising Emma while privately undermining her systems. He removed her visual aids before she arrived, claiming to corporate they were unnecessary accommodations that Emma had outgrown under his mentorship. He redistributed her carefully organized seating charts, creating deliberate confusion she would need to resolve during peak service. What Greg failed to consider was how thoroughly Emma had prepared for such sabotage. She arrived early, carrying replacement materials in her bag. Without comment, she restored her systems before the first customers arrived. By 7 o'clock, the restaurant hummed with activity. Emma moved efficiently through the crowded space, her awareness heightened by necessity. She noticed everything: the subtle tensions between staff members, the calculating way Greg watched her, and the unusually large number of customers filming her routine interactions on their phones. Ben Walker arrived at 8:15 with several associates. Emma recognized him immediately and escorted his party to their reserved table. As she distributed menus, Ben handed her a folded note. "Please read this when you have a moment," he said, ensuring she could see his face clearly. Emma tucked the note into her pocket with a professional nod. Service demands prevented her from reading it until nearly 30 minutes later, during a brief lull. The note was succinct. "I know what's really happening here. My dinner companions are from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and Deaf Advocacy Alliance. We should talk after your shift." Emma carefully refolded the note, her expression revealing nothing. Years of navigating a world not designed for her had taught her exceptional control over her reactions. She continued her duties with unbroken professionalism. Across the restaurant, Greg was entertaining Janine and other corporate representatives who had returned to observe their viral sensation firsthand. His performance was impeccable. Stories of mentoring Emma, claims of specialized training he'd provided, and humble acknowledgement of recognizing her potential when others might have overlooked it. At 9:45, with dinner service winding down, the evening took an unexpected turn. Ben approached the manager's table directly, introducing himself to the corporate team with practiced ease. "Ben Walker, CEO of Walker Investments," he said smoothly. "I've been a regular customer here for years." Janine brightened immediately. Walker Investments was known for restaurant development deals worth millions. "Wonderful to meet you, Mr. Walker. Are you enjoying your evening?" "The food is excellent as always," Ben replied. But I'm actually here on other business tonight. Greg's smile faltered slightly. Oh, yes, Ben continued. I've been observing something troubling over the past week. He looked directly at Greg. Specifically, the treatment of your deaf hostess. The table fell silent. Security cameras captured the precise moment Greg's confident facade cracked. Emma is one of our most valued team members, Greg managed, glancing nervously at Janine. Ben maintained unwavering eye contact. Is that why you hired her as what you called a gag? Is that why you've been mocking sign language behind her back? Is that why you deliberately sabotage her work systems each morning? Janine turned sharply toward Greg. What is he talking about? I have no idea, Greg stammered. This is completely... Don't bother denying it, Ben interrupted. I've been here every day this week, watching everything. My daughter is deaf, Mr. Daniels. I recognize discrimination when I see it. The security cameras captured every moment of the confrontation. Greg's rising panic, Janine's darkening expression, and Emma quietly observing from across the restaurant. Furthermore, Ben continued, my companions are from organizations that take workplace discrimination very seriously. They've been documenting everything. Greg's face drained of color as he noticed the two individuals at Ben's table watching the interaction intently. This is a misunderstanding, Greg insisted, his voice rising. Emma is treated exceptionally well here. Then you won't mind if we review the security footage, Ben suggested. All of it, from the day you hired her until now. Janine stood abruptly. That can be arranged immediately. As corporate representatives moved toward the office to access surveillance records, Greg made a critical error. He approached Emma at the host station, grabbing her arm to turn her toward him. Tell them how well I've treated you, he demanded, forgetting in his panic that his aggressive posture and rapid speech made lip-reading impossible. Emma calmly removed his hand. Please step back so I can understand you. The exchange was captured by both security cameras and several customer phones. The restaurant had fallen silent, every eye on the unfolding drama. You need to tell them I've been supportive, Greg insisted, forcing himself to speak more slowly. Your job depends on it. Emma studied him for a long moment before responding. I cannot lie, even to protect my employment. Ben appeared at Emma's side. Is there a problem here? Greg stepped back immediately. Just checking if Emma needs anything before the end of her shift. Interesting approach, Ben observed coldly. I'm sure the security footage will clarify your concerns for her well-being. As Greg retreated toward his office, where Janine and her team were already reviewing video records, Lisa approached Emma with visible concern. Are you okay? She asked. Emma nodded. I've faced worse discrimination. The difference this time is having witnesses who recognize it. The restaurant gradually emptied as closing time approached. Emma completed her closing duties with characteristic thoroughness, aware that tonight marked a turning point, though uncertain in which direction. In the manager's office, the security footage told its damning story. Greg's cruel jokes, deliberate sabotage, and performative support once Emma gained public attention. Most damaging were the clips showing him mocking sign language when Emma wasn't looking, behavior captured clearly by cameras he'd forgotten were always watching. By midnight, Emma finished her shift and found Ben waiting near the exit. Thank you, she said simply. Ben shook his head. No thanks needed. What happens next is your choice. Emma glanced toward the manager's office, where raised voices could be seen if not heard through the glass windows. Years of discrimination had taught her that such moments rarely led to meaningful change. But perhaps this time would be different. This time, there was proof no one could deny. The security cameras continued recording as Emma considered her options and her worth. Saturday morning dawned with an eerie quiet at Riverside Bistro. Staff arrived to find corporate representatives installed in Greg's office, reviewing additional security footage with grave expressions. Greg himself was conspicuously absent, replaced by an interim manager named Thomas. Emma arrived precisely on time, unaware of the overnight developments. She noticed the changed atmosphere immediately, hushed conversations that stopped when she approached, sympathetic glances from certain staff members, and the interim manager waiting nervously at her host station. "Emma," Thomas began awkwardly, "I've been asked to inform you that Greg is on administrative leave pending an investigation." Emma nodded, absorbing this information without visible reaction. "Corporate would like to meet with you after the morning shift," Thomas continued. "They've arranged for a professional interpreter to be present." What Thomas didn't mention was that overnight, the confrontation had leaked online. Security camera footage showing Greg mockingly imitating sign language had been anonymously uploaded to social media, juxtaposed with clips of his public praise following the choking incident. The hashtag #RiversideHypocrisy was trending in local circles. Emma worked through the morning shift with her usual efficiency, though she noticed subtle changes. Staff members who had previously aligned with Greg now approached her with awkward attempts at friendship. Others who had quietly supported her became more openly protective. Lisa pulled Emma aside during a brief lull. "Are you okay with everything?" "That's happening." Emma considered the question carefully before responding. "This isn't about me feeling better. It's about changing a pattern." By noon, Riverside Bistro had become the center of an unexpected movement. Deaf community members began arriving in groups, filling tables and communicating in sign language throughout the restaurant. They had organized overnight through social media, responding to the leaked footage with a show of solidarity. Thomas watched with visible anxiety as the restaurant filled with deaf patrons. Without Greg's superficial charm to rely on, he found himself woefully unprepared to communicate effectively. Emma observed his struggle for several minutes before approaching. "Would you like some help?" Thomas nodded gratefully. "Gather the staff," Emma suggested. "I can teach everyone 5 basic signs that will make service smoother." Within minutes, Emma stood before the assembled servers, demonstrating simple signs for welcome, water, menu, check, and thank you. Most staff members participated eagerly, practicing the movements with varying degrees of skill. Todd, the bartender who had laughed at Greg's initial joke, hung back until Emma approached him directly. "I was wrong," he admitted, making sure she could read his lips. "I should have stood up to Greg from the beginning." Emma smiled slightly. "It's never too late to learn." Throughout the afternoon, something remarkable unfolded across the restaurant floor. Hearing servers attempted basic signs with deaf customers. Deaf patrons responded with patience and encouragement. Mistakes became moments of connection rather than embarrassment. Laughter, genuine this time, bridged communication gaps. By 3:00, when Emma entered the corporate meeting, Riverside Bistro had transformed. What Greg had intended as mockery had catalyzed a genuine cultural exchange. Inside the conference room, Janine Foster and 2 other executives waited alongside, a professional interpreter. Emma noted the security footage playing silently on a monitor, showing Greg's cruelest moments interspersed with her consistent professionalism. "Thank you for meeting with us," Janine began, waiting for the interpreter to sign before continuing. "We've reviewed extensive footage and received numerous staff statements. What happened to you was unacceptable." Emma nodded, unsurprised. "What happens now?" "Greg has been terminated, effective immediately," Janine stated flatly. "But that's just the beginning. We'd like to discuss compensation for the discrimination you experienced." Emma had anticipated a settlement offer, perhaps a few $1,000 to quietly resolve the situation before any formal complaints reached regulatory agencies. What she hadn't expected was Janine's next statement. "More importantly, we want to implement systemic changes. With your permission, we'd like to use this situation as a catalyst for comprehensive accessibility training across all our locations." The interpreter's hands moved rapidly as Emma processed the proposal. This was different from the perfunctory apologies she'd received from previous employers. This suggested actual change. "I'm listening," Emma replied carefully. For the next hour, they discussed specific reforms, training programs, communication protocols, hiring practices. Emma shared experiences and suggestions she had accumulated throughout years of workplace discrimination. "There's one more thing," Janine said as the meeting concluded. "Ben Walker contacted our CEO directly this morning. He's offered to fund an accessibility consultant for our restaurant group, if you would consider taking the position." Emma's expression remained neutral, though her mind raced. "I'll need time to consider." As Emma left the conference room, she found Ben waiting in the hallway. "I hope I didn't overstep," he said when she approached. "The consultant position is genuine. No strings attached." Emma studied him thoughtfully. "Why are you doing this?" "My daughter," Ben explained. "She's 16, profoundly deaf since birth. Every barrier you've faced, she will too. Unless people like me use whatever influence we have to change things." Emma nodded slowly. "I haven't agreed to anything yet. I need to think." Outside in the main restaurant, Emma found the unexpected solidarity continuing. More deaf customers had arrived, along with hearing allies who had seen the viral videos. Lisa had organized a makeshift sign language lesson for interested servers. Even Todd was participating, his fingers awkwardly forming basic greetings. Emma watched silently from the periphery, struck by the strange journey that had brought her here. What had begun as one man's cruel joke had evolved into something profound, a small but significant shift in awareness that rippled beyond the restaurant walls. On a nearby table, Emma noticed a phone displaying the latest viral video, not the choking rescue, but security footage of her calmly restoring her work systems each morning after Greg's sabotage. The caption read, "Resilience doesn't need sound to be heard." As Emma gathered her belongings to leave, she noticed the security cameras still quietly recording from above. The same all-seeing eyes that had captured discrimination had ultimately delivered justice. There was poetry in that symmetry, a silent revolution documented in frames per second. Emma walked out of Riverside Bistro with confidence born of vindication, unaware that her story was just beginning to create meaningful change, one viewed video at a time. 3 months after the confrontation at Riverside Bistro, Greg Daniels sat across from his therapist in a modest office across town. His hands fidgeted restlessly on the armrests as he struggled to articulate his thoughts. "I still don't understand how everything imploded so quickly," he said, his voice tinged with lingering resentment. "One minute I'm managing a successful restaurant, the next I'm unemployable because of some viral videos." Dr. Patel responded with practiced neutrality. "You've been coming here for 8 weeks, Greg. We've discussed the videos extensively. Do you still believe they misrepresented your actions?" Greg stared at the floor. "No," he admitted reluctantly. "They showed exactly what I did. I just never expected anyone to care." This was progress, small but significant. When Greg had first arrived for court-mandated therapy following the discrimination settlement, he had been consumed by self-pity and externalized blame. The journey toward accountability was proving painful but necessary. "Have you completed the assignment from last session?" Dr. Patel asked. Greg nodded, retrieving a folded paper from his pocket. The assignment had been deceptively simple. Write a letter to Emma explaining his behavior without justification or excuse. "I haven't sent it," Greg clarified. "You said that wasn't the point." "The point is developing awareness," Dr. Patel reminded him. "Would you like to share any part of it?" Greg unfolded the letter, avoiding eye contact as he read. "The truth is, I was threatened by you from the moment you walked in. Not because you were deaf, but because you were competent in ways I wasn't. My mockery wasn't about your disability. It was about my insecurity. I couldn't bear that someone I considered less than could be more than me in any way." He refolded the letter quickly. That's as far as I got. Dr. Patel nodded. It's an honest start. Across town, Riverside Bistro had undergone a transformation few could have predicted. Under Janine's direction, the restaurant had become the company's test site for comprehensive accessibility innovations. Visual alert systems complemented audio ones. Menus featured Braille options. Staff underwent regular training in basic sign language and disability awareness. Emma, however, was no longer there. In the corporate headquarters of Walker Restaurant Group, Emma Miller adjusted her blazer before entering the conference room where 20 restaurant managers waited. A professional interpreter stood ready beside the podium. Good morning, Emma began, her voice clear and measured. Today we're discussing how accessibility isn't charity, it's good business. For the next hour, Emma led the group through data demonstrating the financial benefits of inclusive practices. She showed videos of customers with various disabilities, navigating poorly designed spaces, then the same individuals experiencing thoughtfully accessible environments. The difference was striking. Questions? Emma asked as she concluded. A manager in the back row raised his hand. Isn't all this accommodation extraordinarily expensive? Emma smiled slightly. Accommodation implies burden. Think of it as innovation. Instead, the electric light wasn't created to accommodate people who couldn't maintain oil lamps. It was an improvement for everyone. The same principle applies here. After the training, Ben Walker approached Emma with evident pride. Another successful session. The feedback scores are consistently outstanding. Emma nodded. 6 more franchises next week? As scheduled, Ben confirmed. Also, there's something else. He handed her an envelope. The governor's office called. They want you to serve on the state's Business Accessibility Commission. Emma accepted the envelope with characteristic composure. In 3 short months, she had transitioned from hostess to consultant to recognized authority on workplace inclusivity. Her viral moment had opened doors previously barred to her, but it was her expertise that kept them open. Later that afternoon, Emma visited Riverside Bistro for the first time since leaving. The restaurant had become something of a pilgrimage, site for disability advocates, though most regular customers remained unaware of its significance beyond serving excellent food. Lisa greeted Emma with an enthusiastic hug. The celebrity returns, she teased, signing the words simultaneously, a skill she'd developed over the past months. Emma laughed. Hardly a celebrity. How are things here? Better, Lisa replied. Different. Thomas is actually a decent manager once he found his footing. And look. She gestured toward the host station where Emma had once stood. A young man, in a wheelchair, greeted customers with confident professionalism, navigating the specially designed lowered counter with ease. Nearby, a server who Emma recognized as having Down syndrome efficiently delivered meals to smiling patrons. Riverside now actively recruits people with various disabilities, Lisa explained. Turns out diverse perspectives actually improve service. Who would have thought? Her tone carried friendly sarcasm. Emma smiled. Everyone should have thought. After catching up with former colleagues, Emma sat alone at a quiet corner table. She opened her laptop to review presentation materials for tomorrow's training when a notification appeared. A message from an unfamiliar email address with the subject line, "From Greg Daniels." Emma hesitated before opening it. The message was brief. I don't expect forgiveness or response. I just wanted you to know that I'm learning to see what I was blind to before. The security cameras caught my actions, but they also captured something I couldn't see. My own prejudice. I'm sorry. Emma closed the email without replying. Perhaps someday she would respond, but not yet. Transformation required more than a single moment of awareness. It demanded sustained effort and change, something she had modeled her entire life. On the wall above her table, a security camera quietly recorded the scene, the same model that had documented her journey from mockery to vindication. Emma glanced up at it with a slight smile, acknowledging its silent witness. Across the restaurant, 2 new employees were learning Emma's visual communication system, now officially adopted as Riverside's standard operating procedure. Her innovations, once dismissed as unnecessary accommodations, had become recognized as operational improvements benefiting everyone. Outside, as dusk settled over the city, Emma packed her laptop and prepared to leave. Through the window, she noticed a young deaf girl walking past with her parents, signing animatedly about her. Day at school. The girl glanced inside, her eyes widening with recognition as she spotted Emma. Emma waved, and the girl waved back enthusiastically. No words were exchanged, but a powerful message transferred between them. The quiet acknowledgement that the world was slowly becoming more accessible, one changed mind at a time. As Emma exited Riverside Bistro, she passed beneath the security camera that had first captured her entering as an unwanted joke hire. The same silent sentinel now recorded her departure as an agent of transformation, a fitting bookend to a journey that had revealed what truly needed to be seen. What the camera couldn't capture was the invisible ripple effect extending far beyond building modifications and policy changes. In workplace after workplace, the viral story of the deaf hostess and the security footage had prompted uncomfortable conversations, personal reflections, and incremental changes. Greg continued his therapy, gradually reconstructing his understanding of worth and ability. Ben's teenage daughter applied to hospitality management programs, emboldened by Emma's widely shared story. The Wilsons established a foundation promoting emergency response training for those working with differently abled communities. And Emma, who had entered Riverside simply seeking employment, discovered her true calling, transforming momentary awareness into lasting change. The security cameras had captured a jaw-dropping moment, but the most profound transformations occurred in the spaces between recordings, in shifted perspectives, in challenged assumptions, and in the quiet recognition that sometimes the most important communications require no sound at all. The camera's red light blinked steadily above the entrance of Riverside Bistro, continuing its silent witness as new stories unfolded beneath its watchful eye. Stories of challenge and growth, of prejudice and understanding, of the endless human capacity for change when finally willing to truly see.